Hello there, I am the biblical translator, and a lot of us are going through some kind of pain or some kind of exhaustion or some kind of confusion. So I decided to talk about being refined by the fire today. So, as usual, I'll read my notes and I hope it resonates with somebody out there. Being refined by fire in the Bible, e.g. Revelation 3:18, Zechariah 13:9, and Malachi 3:2 to 3, has, I believe, something to do with what is going on in many of our lives who are enduring pain, betrayal, abandonment, insecurity, and neglect. The Bible's image of being refined by fire was born out of real suffering, and it still speaks directly into one word: pain. In the ancient world, fire was not primarily an image of destruction, it was an image of truth. When gold or silver was heated, the fire did not create something new, it revealed what was already there. The impurities rose to the surface, not because the refiner hated the metal, but because he valued it. In Malachi 3:2 to 3, God is described as a refiner and purifier of silver. The refiner does not step away while the metal burns. Ancient writers say the refiner watched the fire closely, knowing the process was complete when he could see his own reflection in the metal. That detail matters. The fire is not random pain, it is attended pain, purposeful, measured, relational. In Zechariah 13 to 9, God says, I will bring the third part through the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. The language of testing here is not about pass or fail. It's about proving what is genuine. Fire separates what can endure from what cannot. What survives the fire is not what is strongest, but what is real. In Revelation 3:18, Jesus speaks to people who appear outwardly fine, but are inwardly impoverished. He urges them to buy gold refined by fire, not success, not comfort, not image, but faith and identity that can survive pressure and exposure. Now, how does Scripture, especially the three mentioned earlier about being refined by fire, connect with us today? We live in a world that prizes appearance, performance, and self-protection. We curate our lives, hide our wounds, and measure worth by approval and stability. But pain, especially relational pain, has a way of burning through those illusions. Betrayal exposes where we placed our trust. Abandonment reveals how much of our identity rested on being chosen. Neglect uncovers old wounds we didn't know were still shaping us. Insecurity flares when the structure that held us collapses. This is where the image of refinement becomes deeply relevant. Fire doesn't mean God causes betrayal or neglect. Scripture is careful about that. What fire means is that nothing false can survive prolonged heat. Pain strips away deception, roles we hid behind, beliefs we inherited but never examined, and expectations that were never meant to carry the weight of our lives. What rises to the surface in suffering, fear, anger, grief, longing is not evidence of failure, it's evidence of exposure. Deception cannot survive sustained heat. It can perform, it can charm, it can convince for a season, but it depends on control, masks, and narrative management. The fire removes all three: time, pressure, intimacy, truth-telling, boundaries. These are forms of heat. Eventually, something gives. One of the most painful things about living closely with a deeply deceptive person is that you are often the one who feels burned, while they seem untouched for a long time. That's because deception feeds on confusion. It needs the other person to doubt their perception, soften reality, explain away inconsistencies. And for a while that works. Scripture is very honest about this. They prosper for a time. Fire doesn't act quickly, but it acts thoroughly. What fire exposes is not just the deceiver, but the dynamic. In prolonged deception, especially in relationships marked by manipulation or emotional erosion, the fire often first refines the one who is telling the truth. You are forced to confront questions like, why did I keep explaining what didn't make sense? Why did I minimize what hurt me? Why did I stay when my inner alarm kept sounding? That question is excruciating, but it's also purifying. It burns away false responsibility, false guilt, and false hope. Many people come out of this kind of fire with a much clearer sense of reality, boundaries, and self-trust. Not because they wanted the fire, but because illusion could no longer survive. Biblically speaking, deception is always unstable. Jesus says nothing hidden will not be disclosed. Paul writes that what is done in darkness will eventually be brought into the light. That's not just about exposure, it's about collapse. Lies require energy to maintain. The truth does not. Fire accelerates that difference. What's especially important to let you know is being refined does not mean you are naive, weak, or foolish. Gold goes into the fire because it is valuable, not because it's defective. In relationships marked by deception, the one who endures pain is often the one capable of empathy, loyalty, hope, and self-reflection. Those qualities are precisely what deception exploits, but they are also what survives the fire when illusions fall away. Deception burns out. Truth remains, even if scorched. Deception has an expiration date. Fire may take longer than we want, but it is relentless. Refinement hurts because it involves loss, not just the loss of people or safety, but the loss of who we thought we had to be in order to be loved. That's why refinement feels like unraveling. The Bible never pretends this process is gentle. Who can endure the day of his coming? Malachi asks. The honest answer is no one unchanged. Fire is not the end. The end is communion. In Zechariah, after the fire, God says, they will call on my name and I will answer them. I will say they are my people and they will say the Lord is our God. Refinement leads to relationship, not perfection, not immunity from pain, but a deeper, truer belonging. In today's world, being refined by fire often looks like learning to stand without approval that once defined you, discovering boundaries where you once overgave, letting grief teach you compassion instead of bitterness, allowing God to meet you not in your strength but in your exposure. It is not that suffering automatically makes people better. Fire can harden as easily as it purifies. What makes refinement different is presence. God is not the fire itself. He is the refiner who stays, watches, limits the heat, and works towards restoration. If you're enduring pain right now, refinement does not mean this is happening because you need fixing. It means your life is not being wasted, even when it feels reduced. Something false is being removed, not to leave you empty, but to make room for something that can last. And perhaps the most comforting part of these scriptures for today perhaps the most comforting part of these scriptures for today's society is this. Refined gold is not flashy, it's quieter, heavier, more honest. It doesn't sparkle to impress, it endures. The person who is stoic, the person who endures for a time, for joy cometh in the morning, is desperately needed in a world that burns people out and discards them when they crack. Refinement doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you genuine, authentic, and true. And I hope that resonated with someone. I did garble a bit. I don't know what's happening with me these days, but hey, it's not a perfect world, is it? But I do hope you found that scripture, all those scriptures helpful. And for those of you who are going through a rough time, joy cometh in the morning. And that's all for now. You take care. Bye-bye.